light that candles on Rodney Childers' birthday cake because Kevin Harvick wins Atlanta.
Yep, that's about what we get at Atlanta. This is the Rich Report, bringing you the richest content across entertainment. We are recapping the Atlanta race. Johnny Crane joining me as always for these NASCAR recaps. And we have a special guest today, Josh Schneider, a friend that I had in elementary school only for a year because he moved out from California. But he's joining us today. Josh, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Out here in North Carolina. Not the most exciting race today, unfortunately, but still NASCAR, still something to watch on TV, and it's still a sport. So can't complain too much, but definitely could have used some better racing.
Johnny, how are you doing?
I'm doing well as always, Cameron. You know, like Josh said, not a lot of sports going on. NHL will be coming back soon. MLB, we don't know when they're coming back. NBA will come back soon. But, hey, we got NASCAR right now. And even if it was a pretty subpar race, it was still something to watch, something to analyze, something to talk about, which is what we're doing right now. So I can't complain.
That is true. And in my opinion, the best thing that happened today was not even in the race. It was the pre-race. I think the show of unity and support of Black Lives Matter, no matter what side you're on, it is a big step forward for NASCAR in terms of their moral standards and how they've gotten this sort of the stereotype of, oh, it's just a bunch of people from the South and they're racist. And no, I mean, I've been in this sport. I've been around the sport for around 15 years now. And I mean, well, I haven't had any experiences at a racetrack. Others probably have, but in my time, everybody I've been around, every fan that I've talked to has been great to me and my dad. And my dad is, fully black when you look at him. So, I mean, not really much on my side to complain about, but either way, regardless of how you see it, it's a massive step forward. And I think one of the best signs of best shows of support we've seen for the movement and speaking out against all the injustices in the world. So it's definitely a good step for NASCAR. But we're going to talk about the race. So Josh, I will kick it to you. Just lay it out. What happened today?
Well, I mean, like you said, first of all, a great pre-race show. It's been a tough week for the country, and so it's good to see NASCAR take a good stand there and support something that really matters and support some people that need it right now. But in terms of racing, I think one of the things we saw is the dominance of clean air at these racetracks. This package kind of really emphasizes that. You saw it in the first 25 laps before the competition caution. Chase Elliott just jumped out to the lead. We found out late throughout the race he wasn't really the best car out there, but he had the clean air to start and jumped right out there. Overall, Kevin Harvick, it's nice to see skill and experience dominate in NASCAR because we want to see the best drivers win the races. But jumping out to these 4, 5, 6 second leads over second and third place, he laps up to 10th place, up to the 10th place car. That's not exactly the kind of exciting racing we want to see, especially at a track like Atlanta that has two viable grooves. I think higher horsepower, lower downforce, as we've said for weeks and months now. I think that would help the racing because there's two grooves, and if they're running a little closer together, I think we'd see some really great races and some really great competition. But like I said, Kevin Harvick dominated. He showed just how patient, just how experienced he is, putting his car right on the edge there, literally right up, down on that apron, just barely towing the line, as Jeff Gordon, Mike Joy were explaining all race. But he showed how dominating he is. And nice little tribute to Dale Sr. there at the end. What is it, almost 20 years since that win. So good to see that too. A couple other things I saw, Alex Bowman, who I thought would unload with another fast car, didn't really. He's been good at the 1.5 mile tracks, and he had a tough day today. Jimmy Johnson, solid again, but couldn't quite break into the top 5. I still see a win coming for him sometime soon. Those Hendrick cars and other Chevys have been pretty fast. But, overall, I'm just seeing Kevin Harvick, show everyone why he's a 51-time winner in the NASCAR Cup Series.
Yeah, and I'll just add on that it's not the track. This wasn't Atlanta being a bad track. This is solely on the high downforce package that once you get behind someone in dirty air, your car will stall out. This is a multi-groove track. There is no reason why drivers who have better cars should not be able to get around guys who are slower than them. If you're right behind somebody, you should be able to get right behind them, maybe get some of the air off of them, get them loose, whatever you can to move them. But no, when you get a run on, when you're running on the outside and then you get a run on somebody, your car will stall out. You don't, unless you're on him well enough to where you can make a move and you have that draft, that's when you can make a move. But you're not going to make it if you're running the same line in the turns. It's just not going to happen. And instead of having the same momentum, being able to maybe make a pass in 3 or 4 laps and maybe couldn't on the first attempt, you could always gain it back. But no, you end up behind somebody in turns, you're going to stall out and you're going to fall 4 or 5 tenths behind that guy ahead of you.
Yeah, and I mean, we saw some great battles there. Like Chase Elliott and Kurt Busch right at the last 10, 15 laps, they were battling high lane, low lane, switching off, you know, so we can see good racing here. Like you said, it's not the track. It's just got to figure something out with the package.
All right, Johnny, you're up.
Well, you're absolutely right. High downforce, it was sort of reminiscent of what Charlotte and Darlington was. It wasn't so much single file in Atlanta as it was in those tracks. However, it pretty much was a clean air monopoly. If you got all that clean air, especially at the restarts, I mean, we did see some battles at the restarts with the first 2-3 cars battling for that clean air. But once there was separation gained, it was pretty much just shooting out ahead, multiple car lengths. Like we saw Kevin Harvick, absolutely dominant race. And when you look at Kevin Harvick's season so far, I know some past seasons at this point of the season, he's had multiple wins, more than 2. However, I think this season might be his most consistent season in quite a while. And even though he finished beyond the top 10 in last week's race at the Coliseum, he was still pretty good in that race too. And I think that he might have gotten the most dominant win so far in the season, maybe even over Bowman at Auto Club. Might be slight though, because Bowman's win at Auto Club, I think the one thing that Bowman's win might have over Harvick's win here is that there was more debris on the track getting up on the grills that Bowman had to deal with, that Harvick really didn't have to have a problem with because there were no fans there to throw debris onto the track. So, yeah. But moving on, I think I know me and Cameron have talked about it on the show a good bit. I know you mentioned it a little too, Josh. At the beginning of the year, going into this race, Hendrick has been having those high-speed cars, but they haven't been able to cash in and have that complete race from start to finish. However, the one group that had that complete win today had to be Joe Gibbs. And I know that they didn't win the race per se, but when you look at the big 3, and I'm going to leave Eric Jones out of it for a minute, but when you look at Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex, and Kyle Busch, they finished in the top 10 altogether for the first time since May 20th. And they all finished in the top 5 for the first time since last September at Richmond. So they're really putting it together now. I know Truex had some mechanical issues to start the year. I know Kyle Busch kept on dealing with those penalties, speeding on pit road, having to go to the rear, and that really messed up his routine. But Joe Gibbs Racing, I think, might be the most complete group right now, and that might be the group that has the highest ceiling. And I know Hendrick has those fast cars, so they could be that group to overtake Joe Gibbs. But I think right now, when you look at this race, I really think they might be the team to beat right now. And finally, I know we talked about Chase Elliott. I know we're talking about Alex Bowman. We're talking about Jimmy Johnson. This is last season. But the one Chevy no one's talking about really is Kurt Busch. And when you look at Kurt Busch, he's finished in the top 10 in 7 of his past 8 races, which was really good. And remember, he had to start at the rear today due to all of the problems he had pre-race, and he still came out and finished in the top 10. So a really sneaky car, a really fast car, and a good car that can really deal with adversity in that regard.
Yeah. All right. So one thing I need to hit on here is that at local tracks, there's this thing called a choice cone, and you get to choose the lane that you want to be in at the restart. And then we saw on one of the pit stops after, I believe it was stage 2, Truex practically slammed the brakes, checking up everybody. He had about 6 or 7 cars behind him because he did not want to start in the outside line. Enter the choice cone, and we don't have those problems anymore. You can just come out wherever you come out, you finish second, but you can choose either restarting on the bottom line or at the top, depending on where's the better place to restart. And, you could always see guys that maybe are in the back a little bit. They can work their way up possibly and take that risk, start maybe first on the outside line if they choose to find their way in, and they're sitting instead of 15th, they're in third. So they really need to clean this up. And I've seen a lot of that talk on Twitter, and I think it should be a thing that comes into fruition. Your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I think I saw a tweet that said on Boyer's radio he was complaining about Truex, and I think it happened another time on another late pit stop. But I agree. I don't think that drivers should be hitting the brakes on pit road. This is a race. We should be going as fast as we can at all times. So I don't like the hitting the brakes, and as you said, that should be a sign that the choose cone would obviously fix that, and that should be a sign that it maybe should be at least tried. And I mean, we've tried so many different things with this random draw for starting order, inverting the starting order. Why not throw the choose cone in there at this point? It's not like there are going to be fans there to complain about.
The All-Star race in July.
There you go.
The All-Star.
Yeah.
Y'all hit it both. And I think a bigger thing here is depending on the car pileup that could happen. This is a danger issue. This is a safety issue, depending on the pileups. Because if Truex slams on the brakes there and the cars behind him don't react quick enough, they're running into Truex, and the cars behind those cars are running in. It's pretty much an accordion of a big mess, a lot of wreckage, and depending how close it is to the pit stalls, and depending on if equipment comes out of the pit stalls, like the tires go beyond their lanes and whatnot, there's a safety issue. So I really think something has to be worked out, maybe something like y'all mentioned at the All-Star race. But there's a little bit of a safety concern, and it needs to be worked for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that little sequence there reminded me of Auto Club qualifying last year when everybody, was waiting to get a draft off. Nobody wanted to go out first. And so Austin Dillon was the only guy who made it to the start finish line and won the pole. Everybody didn't get a timing because they didn't reach their lap, didn't reach the time to actually get a lap in. So yeah, it's ridiculous. It's time to do something about these restarts. And it's a good strategy device too, especially if you want to emphasize strategy in your races. Get a guy that's been running top 15 all race. He could possibly work his way in the second. Maybe he gets a good restart and could take the lead. So I think it's really something that could add that extra oomph to races. And one more thing I want to hit on. I'm a big proponent of – I've always been one of – I just like the races at the lengths that they're at. I've never really been a guy to complain about, oh, well, this race took 4 hours or so. But now it's starting to get tedious, especially with this aero package. I really don't think we need races this long. I think 2021 can be sort of that gateway to, okay, let's run shorter races because we are still going to use the same package because the Gen 7 car will not come out until 2022. But tracks like Atlanta, tracks like Charlotte, except for the Coke 600, Texas, Kentucky's, they could all be shorter because you can get as much action within a shorter race than you would have gotten this entire one. And plus, it adds more emphasis that these drivers need to really get going to if they want a shot at getting a top finish. So, Josh, are you for shorter races, or do you like the lengths that they're at now?
I think I'm in a similar opinion. Have a similar opinion to you in that the crown jewel races stay the same. We're not making the Daytona 350 or something. Keep it the 500, the 600, but I don't think there's any reason that Atlanta can't be 350 or 400 miles, maybe even less. It creates the urgency. It makes sure that no one's ever just riding around, holding out to do something later in the race. I've liked these midweek races that are a little shorter because, like I said, there's urgency. The drivers feel like they need to get that track position early because they can't wait around on mile 100 out of 500. So,
yeah, the only thing I do is replace, instead of making the Brickyard a crown jewel, just make the Bristol Night Race the crown jewel and keep that the same because I don't care how short or how long the Brickyard 400 is. It's never going to be fun. Johnny, you got anything?
When you look at what NASCAR races are, they're sort of like what baseball is, in that there's really no time limit. There's no clock. So whenever the race is finished, it could be in 4 hours, it could be in 5. It all depends on weather. So I really think if you decrease the length, especially of the non-crown jewel races, that'll not only increase viewership, it'll keep the viewer in attention to the race and not changing the channel, especially right now where there are no fans in the stands. If you don't want the viewers to change the channel, you need to keep them involved. And I think you could really do that by shortening the races such as these. Leave the crown jewels alone. Don't mess with them. Leave them alone. They're their own thing. They're their own thing for a reason. But all the other races that might need to get more views, you could possibly do that by decreasing the lengths. And like you said, if you decrease the lengths and there's more urgency, there's more need to be aggressive, more need to be more pass oriented. I know that is hard with the high downforce, and I know that's hard with the aero package at times. But if you decrease the race lengths, I think that creates a little more urgency to at least try to do something different than to just wait for the final 100 laps in a 600-mile race or whatnot, and do something. Make it a little more urgent. Make the drivers think. Make the drivers think on their feet a little bit more. So I really think you could do something like that, and I really think you could do something like that with not only the weekend races, but with the during the week races that we're seeing at Martinsville this week and so on.
Yeah. In terms of the top 10, a good day for a lot of teams. I mean, Stewart-Haas was the only team with one of the only top teams with only one driver in the top 10, but Joe Gibbs, great day, top 5 for 3 of their guys. Penske, all of them in the top 10, and then Hendrick was able to get 2 guys as well. So, I mean, in terms of equipment, the top teams, there's a lot of diversity. There's a lot of parity. I think everybody's getting a shot. Bubba Wallace would have had a better run had he not had a loose wheel. Once again, mechanical issues affecting that team once again when Bubba Wallace there's more speed in that car definitely than we've seen the last 2 years. Bubba, I think, on average, if there's no mistakes, he's a top 15 guy on a weekly basis. If he can put some finishes together and his team doesn't bring cars that fall apart halfway through the race, then I think he's going to be at least a threat to score more top 10s than he's ever had in his first 2 seasons in Cup. But yeah, we'll have a written recap available for this as well. I'll put that in a link in the description. We'll have this as an audio version as well on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. These 2 knuckleheads will be back, I think, for Wednesday. Are we down for Wednesday, or is it going to be past y'all's bedtime on this?
I'm in.
You're talking to me about bedtime, Cameron. I don't want to hear that. Okay, I'm in.
It's the 4th guy in this group that we got to worry about. Thanks for watching. I'll leave all 3 of our social medias in the description as well, and we will see you on Wednesday for the next video. Thanks for watching.